Today for economics is day 5. Our topic is thinking at the margin. Students submitted their notes for credit from chapter 2.4 and they completed a do now at the start. You can find both the do now, this PowerPoints, answer keys, and all handouts on Schoology. We'll go through the examples we did together in class, thinking at the margin with some notes and key terms. Feel free to pause at any moment. And good luck. So our big question for today, when is one more too much? Our learning objectives: find the marginal cost, marginal benefit of various decisions, and then explain marginal utility and how it decreases as we increase the quantity of an activity. The standards that this relates to is the second one here, explaining opportunity cost and its relation to marginal benefit and marginal cost. So thinking at the margin, economists rarely think in terms of an all or nothing situation. In fact, you and I, businesses, don't think in all or nothing terms. We usually think about, well, I'm going to eat lunch, but how much more am I going to eat? Am I going to have one more scoop? Am I going to have one more bite of this cookie? We're always thinking at the margin. And so marginal benefit is going to be the benefit of using one more unit of a product or activity. And another way of saying it is what we gain in terms of time, money, effort, experience, or satisfaction for one more unit of something. Marginal cost is just the opposite. It's the cost of using one more unit of a product or activity. And it's what we lose for that one more or less unit of something. So marginal simply means one more or one less of something. Some other examples: studying 1 more hour, working for 1 more hour, sleeping, or waking up 1 hour earlier. Okay, you always gain or lose something for that difference of 1. We practiced with this table. We have extra hours of study, the benefit as a grade in economics, and the cost is hanging out with your friends. If we identify the benefit of 3 hours of studying, we are going to go down to 3 extra hours of studying, and we find the total benefit is a 2.5. The cost of studying for 3 extra hours, we stick with the 3 extra hours here. We go past the benefit and go to the cost. We are giving up 3 hours with our friends. So this is the total cost. Now, if we want to find the marginal benefit of 2 extra hours, we're going to take a look at 2 hours. This is the total benefit. Marginal is going to ask, what do we get from going from 1 hour to 2 hours of study? Well, if we just did 1 hour, we got a 1.5. But if we do 2 hours, we get a 2.0. So what is the benefit of studying for this 1 extra hour? And we can find that by doing a simple calculation. 2 minus 1.5 equals a 0.5 increase. We're always looking for the difference between these two. If we studied for 1, it was a 1.5. What did we have to, how much more did we benefit by studying for another hour? 0.5 to get 2. Marginal cost works the same way. 5 extra hours, we give up 5 hours with our friends as a total cost. The marginal cost is going to be 1 hour with our friends, the difference between 5 hours of study and 4 hours of study. The marginal benefit of studying for 4 extra hours. 4 extra hours of study, the total benefit is 3. Minus 2.5, we get a 0.5 increase in our score. The marginal cost of studying for 6 hours, we give up 6 hours with our friends, is the total cost. Marginal cost is going to be 6 minus 5, 1 additional hour with our friends. Now, rarely in life are benefits and costs at consistent intervals like this. Usually there's a lot more variety. But whether or not they're constant or they're not constant, you're going to be doing the same calculations. So here's another example. What is the cost of a 3rd hour of practice? We're practicing our free throw accuracy for 1, 2, or 3 hours, and we're giving up various things. Our opportunity cost will be the same as our cost, total cost. So for a 3rd hour of extra practice, we're giving up 3 hours of sleep. The marginal cost of that 3rd hour is going to be 3 minus 2 will be 1 hour of sleep. Another way of looking at this, the benefit of a third hour of practice is going to be an 85% free throw accuracy. That's our total benefit. But the marginal benefit of a third hour of practice is going to be 85 minus 80 equals 5% greater accuracy. The marginal benefit of a second hour of practice is going to be 80 minus 70 equals 10% greater accuracy. The marginal benefit of the first hour of practice, now this is tricky because you don't have anything above this, right? We go from 0 hours of practice, well, we can assume that you're not going to have any benefit if you don't practice at all. So 70 minus 0 equals 70% greater accuracy. So you should be able to see that as we practice more hours, our total benefit increases. But take a look at marginal benefit. What is happening to marginal benefit as you increase your hours of practice? Well, we start off with 1 hour, we get 70. Our second hour, we get 10. Our third hour, we get 5. So it's decreasing. And we would expect our fourth hour to be less than 5% accuracy. Businesses think at the margin all the time. And one example would be to look at soda cans. They used to be designed like this, where they had the same diameter at the top and at the bottom. But you can see a can that we have today looks more like this, where it's narrower here on the inside. We discussed in class that the reason for this is because companies look for ways where they can save money. And they found that if they have a smaller diameter at the top and at the bottom, they're able to use a little bit less aluminum. Now it might be a centimeter less aluminum, and let's say that centimeter of aluminum costs them 3 cents. Well, for one can, it's not much of a savings. But when you multiply that over the millions of cans that exist, the companies are able to save millions of dollars by that one simple adjustment. That's an example of thinking at the margin. What can I save by taking off one little bit to this can and making it a smaller diameter? Utility, similar to benefit, but utility is specifically the satisfaction or pleasure that you get from making a decision. Psychologists, economists, they try to quantify the decisions that we make. We might say that something was good, excellent, really good, awesome, out of this world. But how do we quantify that? Economists try to put a measurement to it, and they do so by using this thing called utils. It might be similar to inches or ounces or feet or pounds, but it's simply a measure of our satisfaction. And so we can think of it this way, that we make a decision, we might be indifferent, experience no pain or pleasure, or we might feel good about something, and we would experience what we can call utility. On the other hand, we could make decisions that hurt us and we don't feel any pleasure or satisfaction. We would experience negative utility. Marginal utility will work the same way as marginal benefit. It's the extra satisfaction or pleasure you get from an increase of one additional unit of a good or service. And again, marginal utility, it's a type of benefit. Benefit is an umbrella term. Marginal utility, marginal revenue would all be terms that fall under that umbrella term. So you'll calculate it the same way as you do with marginal benefit. And so let's do that. If we take a look at the number of Miss FJ cookies that are eaten, if you don't eat any cookies, you're not going to have zero utility. But you have that first cookie and it tastes really good. And so all of a sudden you experience 25 utility, 25 utils. The second cookie, your total utility goes up to 40. Your third cookie, your total utility goes up to 50, and so on. Now to calculate the marginal utility, we're going to do the same thing as what we did before. And if we don't have any cookies, we won't have any utility. We're not going to experience any marginal utility. But if we have one cookie, we're going to experience 25 utility, and that's a 25 util increase from not having any cookies. And so if we do the simple calculations, 25 minus 0 is 25, 40 minus 25 is 15, 50 minus 40 is 10, 5, and 2. And again, we should see that our total utility increases and our marginal utility decreases as we consume more of an activity. So we can take this data and we can make a picture of it. We can make a graph. So for total utility, on the x-axis we're going to have quantity. On the y-axis we're going to have the total utility. And as you can see here, after we have something, we're going to experience some satisfaction. And that satisfaction, that total is going to keep on going up. But as you notice here, we go 50 to 55 to 57. We're not going 0 to 25, 50, 75, 100, it's not going straight up, it's leveling off, so it gets flatter up here. That's what a total utility curve does. For the marginal utility, it's going to be negative. This is decreasing, so we experience a lot of utility at the start, but as we consume more of an activity, our satisfaction decreases until we get to 0. And we might even get to negative utility, where we're below 0. So total utility, marginal utility curves will always look like this. The last concept is the law of diminishing marginal utility, and that's basically explaining what we just saw with the cookie example. As the quantity of a good consumed increases, the marginal utility of each additional unit decreases. And here's a good example with ice cream. As we eat ice cream, we feel really good, but as we consume more of it, we're going to be down to 0. And pretty soon we might feel sick. We might want to vomit because we've had so much ice cream, so we don't experience that satisfaction anymore. We no longer want it. A good video that shows this with a pizza example is at this link right here. One last way to look at this is with water. We think of water as being really good, but when we look at the utility of water over a long period of time, we can see that the utility curve looks like this. As we start out with rain, rain is really good and we experience utility, but we're going to get to a point, just like we did with the cookies, where we start to level off, where we don't get very much satisfaction anymore, and then pretty soon we're going to experience negative utility, and we're not going to want that rain anymore. It's going to bring pain rather than satisfaction. And you could see that in the example with a flood, where our quantity of rain is so much that we don't experience positive utility anymore. For your homework, finish reading and taking notes on Chapter 2.5 on these pages. It looks at production possibilities curves. Continue studying your key terms, and I will see you tomorrow.